our story today, I'm going to read the story that we would have read together in class this week. So it's lesson 21. This would have been in a brand new book. So we don't have this story at home. The story is at our school. So this is not going to be a story that you're going to have, in front of you like you did for the last story from last week. But I'm going to share it on our Google Classroom. That way you can read it whenever you feel like, okay? All right. So before we read our story, ooh, bless me. Sorry. Before we read our story, I'm going to go over the words to know. So these are our sight words for the week as well. So these are words that I really want you to be practicing on at home. It's good review. These words are found in reading a lot. So I want to go over these sight words first, and then I'm going to read the story, Frog and Toad together, and then that will be my read aloud for the day. Okay, so the first word we see here, the first card here is few. So I want you to read that at home. Few. What's that word? Few. There are only a few trees here, so not that many. Okay? This next one. This word's very popular in reading, and this word is night. What's that word? Good. Night. The buds open in the day and close at night. Night. All right, moving on to number 3. Loudly. What's that word? Loudly. Good. The birds sang loudly in the tree. So few, your turn. I say, you say. Few. I say, you say night. I say, you say loudly. I say, you say window. And we know this is a word that we can actually tap out. W-I-N-D-O. Remember? O-W says O. Window. All right. The big tree is very close to the window. All right. Number 5 is noise. I heard a noise in the garden. What's that word? Good. Noise. All right. I say, you say few. I say, you say night. I say, you say loudly. I say, you say window. I say, you say noise. I say, you say story. I see our O-R. You hear that or, story. He tells a story about planting trees. Story. All right, we're almost done. Number 7 is shall. Shall. Your turn? Good. We shall pick apples today. All right, let's start from the top. I say, you say few. I say, you say night. I say, you say loudly. I say, you say window. I say, you say noise. I say, you say story. I say, you say shall. I say, you say world. World. My garden is the best place in the world. So few, night, loudly, window, noise, story, shall, world. So now we are going to use those words that we just learned about, and we're going to be looking for them in our story. So I'm going to go ahead and flip us over to the story. So the story, our topic this week is to making a character map or a story map. So we want to be looking for the characters in the story, the setting. The setting is where the story takes place and when the story is happening. Is it happening during the daytime? Is it happening at nighttime? Is it happening outside? Is it happening inside? And then the plot. So the plot is what's happening in the story. And usually there's always a problem in the story and how the characters solve it. So as I'm reading Frog and Toad together, I want you to be thinking about all of those parts. The characters, who are the people in the story? The setting, where and when is the story taking place? And the plot, what is the problem and how is it getting solved? So be thinking about that as I read you the story now. All right, The Garden from Frog and Toad Together. It's a fantasy story, so it's not real, it's fiction, and you're looking for animals who talk and act like people, and events that really could never happen. All right, here we go. Frog was in his garden. Toad came walking by. "What a fine garden you have, Frog," he said. "Yes," said Frog, "it is very nice, but it was hard work." "I wish I had a garden," said Toad. "Here are some flower seeds." "Plant them in the ground," said Frog, "and soon you will have a garden." "How soon?" asked Toad. "Quite soon," said Frog. Toad ran home. He planted the flower seeds. "Now, seeds," said Toad, "start growing." Toad walked up and down a few times. There's our sight word few. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head close to the ground and said loudly, there's our sight word loudly, "Now, seeds, start growing." Toad looked at the ground again. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground and shouted, "Now, seeds, start growing." Frog came running up the path. "What is all this noise?" he asked. There's our sight word noise. "My seeds will not grow," said Toad. "You are shouting too much," said Frog. "These poor seeds are afraid to grow." "My seeds are afraid to grow?" asked Toad. "Of course," said Frog. "Leave them alone for a few days. Let the sun shine on them. Let the rain fall on them. Soon your seeds will start to grow." That night, Toad looked out his window. "Drat," said Toad. "My seeds have not started to grow. They must be afraid of the dark." Toad went out in his garden with some candles. "I will read the seeds a story," said Toad. "Then they will not be afraid." Toad read a long story to his seeds. So what is Toad's problem here? What is he having? What is he getting so upset by? What is Toad getting upset about? Great, he's getting upset that his seeds aren't growing. He's thinking that his seeds are afraid of the dark. So what is he doing to solve that problem? He thinks that the seeds are afraid of the dark. So he says, "You know what? I am going to do what?" What does he do? Good. He reads a story to them and he brings candles out because he thinks he's afraid of the dark. All right. All the next day, Toad sang songs to his friends. And all the next day, Toad read poems to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds still did not start to grow. "What shall I do?" cried Toad. Sight word shall. "These must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world." World, I see sight word. Then Toad felt very tired and he fell asleep. "Toad, Toad, wake up," said Frog. "Look at your garden." Toad looked at his garden. Little green plants were coming up out of the ground. "At last," shouted Toad, "my seeds have stopped being afraid to grow. And now you will have a nice garden too," said Frog. "Yes," said Toad, "but you were right, Frog. It was very hard work." All right, so let's think about that. Who are the characters in the story? As Miss Regs read, who are the characters in the story? Good. If you said Toad and Frog, you are correct. Where was the setting at? Where did the story take place? Good. In the garden. And what was the problem? What was the plot? What was the problem Toad was having? Good. His plants were not, or his seeds were not growing. And then he solved it by what? Right. He gave it water. He attended to it by reading the stories to him, and also just giving it some time to get some sunshine and some water. But if you have a garden at home, you may know how much work a garden really is. But that is our story this week, and I'm going to share on our Google Classroom. That way you are able to read it at home on your own as well.